Yo, what is up guys, Bobby7 King here, back again with another video, and in this video we are going to be ranking every single final boot of Total Drama, which I've already done before, but that was a gameplay ranking. This will be a character ranking on their individual season that they were a final boot in. This is not a ranking of them overall as characters, because this would be a completely different list if that were the case. Anyways, we have 9 final boosts to rank, and to be honest, most of them are really bad, to where had they have won their seasons that they were a final boot in, I definitely would have a lower opinion on the season overall. But let's just get to the rankings. We do have 9 people to rank, and at the very bottom, I mean, I've talked about this character many times about how I do not like them in this particular season, and that is Owen. I've said this a lot throughout the channel. I just did not like Owen in action. I feel like this was a season where he was just a human fart machine, and that was pretty much his only character trait throughout the entire season. And again, once he finally leaves, which I was really happy about, by the way, he comes back and then just becomes a mole, and then like he's pretty much the reason why Lindsay does get eliminated, because he just throws his vote at Courtney for no reason. And even though like people are like, why are you voting out Courtney, she has immunity, he's like, oh, but Courtney's the reason why I got sent home the first time, blah blah, which is like, come on man, what are you doing? And then not to mention the whole mole storyline, which I just didn't care for really. Again, I just feel like the writers put Owen back just because he was like the audience favorite at the time, which I mean, I understand why at the time people liked him, but for me personally, I just don't like Owen's character, especially in action, to where Owen is at the very bottom of the list. And in my opinion, had he had one action, I would definitely have a lower opinion about it overall. So yeah, he is here. Coming in at number 8, we have a final boot that I'm definitely going to have a lot of hate on, especially for the fact that this person is so low, especially because I feel like they have the most iconic run out of all the 9 final boots. However, this is a ranking more so based on if they had won the season, and that person is Heather. And in my mind, Heather is the most iconic villain in Total Drama history, and it's not even close. Again, her burning Lindsay is one of the most iconic moments in Total Drama history, in my opinion. Her rivalry with LaShawn, her rivalry with Gwen, all caused a lot of great moments, in my opinion, and a lot of great episodes, in my opinion. And obviously, I'm not knocking her based on plot armor. That's not the reason why she's so low, as pretty much every single final boot has had plot armor in some way or another. To where, obviously, that's not my main issue. The main issue is the fact that she was the villain of Season 1. Again, her entire edit was supposed to be her setting up for her massive downfall, which obviously does happen in I Triple Dog Dare You, which is it's an iconic episode of the show, really, mainly because she gets her just desserts. And had she had one island, especially how she treated everybody, yeah, sure, it might have been interesting, but I feel like that's not a world where I would want to live in, and that's why she is so low. Again, Heather is a great character in Island, for sure, but had she had won the season, I feel like that definitely does knock her down a bit massively on this list, especially to where, yeah, she is at number 8. Coming in at number 7, we have a final boot that I think you could debate being lower than Heather, obviously, but I don't view the season as really a season to take that seriously, and that is Sugar. I think for me, what puts Sugar just slightly above Heather, to where, to be honest, while recording this, I'm very much debating this placement. I think what puts Sugar like above Heather for me is just because, again, Pockettail Islands this season was no impact whatsoever on the franchise. Again, had Heather won Island, I feel like a lot of things changed. Had Sugar won Pockettail Island, nothing really changes, because again, Pockettail Island characters are not coming back for another season, except for Leonard and Redonkulous Race, and even then he was just a throwaway character as the first boot. Again, yeah, Sugar, she had a rivalry with Ella, which was pretty funny in my opinion. Again, I'm slightly higher on Sugar just overall as a character too. I mean, I'm not slightly lower on Heather, it's just the fact that Sugar, in my opinion, at least has more redeeming qualities than Heather in Island, to where I feel like I would be happier with a Sugar win in Pockettail Island than happier with a Heather win in Total Drama Island. Which actually sounds really crazy to say, but in my opinion, I just think Sugar just would have been a better winner, just because, again, I don't know, it would just make Pockettail Island an even more cracked season than it already is. So yeah, Sugar is here at number 7. I don't really have much to say. Coming in at number 6, we have a final boot that really just did nothing. It was just attached to one person throughout the entire season, and I think you can already tell who I'm talking about, and that is Cody. And straight up, I just feel bad for Cody in World Tour. I mean, you can't really talk about Cody in World Tour without mentioning Sierra, which I've said in the past, Sierra is my least favorite character in Total Drama, probably by a mile, and Sierra definitely does drag Cody down. Not to mention, Cody in general is just really boring as a character, especially in World Tour. Hot take, like, he doesn't really have that much funny moments, and yeah, he was kind of a creep in Island with Gwen asking her for a bra, but at least that was kind of funny in an out-of-pocket type of way, to where out-of-pocket humor is definitely one of my favorite aspects of Total Drama, but it's like, I don't know, man. Like many characters in World Tour besides Heather and Alejandro, they don't really progress that much, and even though they do get storylines, the problem is I don't care about Team Victory losing. I don't care about the love triangle, and I don't care about Sierra pining over Cody. I find that just more so just weird, and even though, yeah, it becomes out of pocket at certain points, I just feel like it's more so just like, it's not that funny to me. So yeah, Cody is here at number 6. Coming in at number 5, we have a final boot who, to be honest, was pretty much derailed throughout the season, to where while obviously they do have funny moments, I just feel like their original character was a lot better, and that is Scott. Here's the thing, I do understand why people like Scott in All-Stars more than Scott in Revenge. Obviously in Revenge of the Island, a lot of people do have issues with Scott as a villain. For me personally, I think Scott was a pretty decent villain in Revenge of the Island. I understand a lot of the criticisms, but I'm personally Team Scott in that season. And moving on to All-Stars, I feel like Scott was just more so treated as a joke, like as just a joke antagonist, which in my opinion, I feel like on an All-Star season, Scott should have been written as not obviously like this massive threat, because he really isn't. Obviously Scott still had his doofy moments in Revenge of the Island. I just feel like his doofy moments were his only character trait, similar to Owen in Action, to where Owen's character was just a human fart machine, where in Island he had just more variance to him as a character, I guess. I mean, not really, it wasn't that Owen was really a complex character, it's just like he was more so just like, he was more than fart jokes pretty much. At least he had a relationship with Izzy, and obviously Scott has a relationship with Courtney, which I obviously do like. I actually do like Scott and Courtney more than I do with Duncan and Courtney, which I know is a hot take, but Duncan and Courtney only had one good season, and Scott and Courtney also only had one season too, but it's like, in my opinion, Scottney overall is better than Duncany overall, so take that as you will. And honestly, there's not much else to say about Scott except for the fact that he was kind of funny, but in my opinion, Revenge Scott is just so much better, so there's not really much I can really say. Yeah, Scott's here at number 5. Coming in at number 4, we have a final boo who, to be honest, if I was ranking them as characters, like overall, this person would be at the very bottom. But on this final boot ranking, where most of the final boots are pretty bad, I feel like this person just shoots up at number 4, and that is Zoey. Honestly, Zoey probably should be number 1 on the list. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. The main issue is obviously Zoey's just kind of boring. While Zoey is a likable character in Revenge of the Island, obviously she is kind of oblivious, but I feel like it's less egregious than in All-Stars, to where she obviously just met Mike. So obviously Mike's saying that, oh, I'm done acting, I'm done playing with my characters and stuff, and then she's like, okay, bet. And then Mike goes and makes out with like Anne Maria for like 10 minutes straight, and then she's like, bro, what just happened? So obviously she's going to be very confused in that aspect, but I feel like once she figures out, and then the whole Grand Chef Otto ending, it was a pretty sweet ending, and I feel like once Mike leaves, that's probably Zoey's peak as a character just in general in Total Drama, where obviously she has the whole Commando Zoey arc, and I really did like that arc for her, and I like the fact that, oh, she realizes that obviously friendship is more important than becoming like a complete beast. So obviously she does leave on a pretty, in my opinion, a pretty good note. But the problem with Zoey is just like, I mean, the problem with Zoey is that she's just kind of boring. Like, I'm not that engaged with Zoey overall as a character. I was more so engaged in Mike or Cameron, not really in Zoey, to be honest. And I don't know if it's just because Zoey doesn't have that much other quirks to her outside of Commando Zoey, but it's just like, I don't know, man. Zoey's just always a character in Revenge of the Island, at least. That was just fine. She was just okay. She's kind of like, again, I don't like this comparison at all. I feel like these people are completely different characters, but she definitely falls into like the Mary Sue kind of role, like kind of like a Sky or a Priya even. Like, I feel like Zoey's kind of like the worst of those three, but I don't know, man. Zoey in Revenge of the Island was pretty okay. I feel like she should be number 1 just because there's not that much issues with her. However, she is really boring, while the other 3 are just are pretty great characters in my mind. So yeah, Zoey's here on number 4. Coming in at number 3, we have a final boot who I've seen a lot of hate for this final boot actually, and I've seen a lot of people say that this final boot shouldn't have made it as far as she did. But in my mind, I definitely like this final boot in this season way more than I did in their previous season, and that is Priya. And I've seen a lot of hate for Priya, especially after season 2, with a lot of people saying that, oh, she shouldn't have made it as far as she did, or oh, winners should never make it as far as they do, or should never win twice, which, again, a lot of people who hate on Priya for going far are also saying people who love Duncan, Owen, these characters who are notorious for going far, so I don't understand where they're going with that logic. And also for the winners can't win again, which I've said in my community tab lanes before a lot. I think winners should be able to win again. If they're going to play again, why not make them win? Especially if they have a good story arc throughout the season. And in my opinion, Priya had a pretty decent story arc. Where coming into the final 4, I was rooting for Priya, and also Julia to an extent. And obviously because also Wayne had no content, Caleb was acting like an idiot, so it's like, why not root for Priya? Also because Priya was pretty likable in the pre-merge, and definitely took a lot of the screen time in the post-merge, but in my opinion, it was pretty deserved content because, again, I do find Caleb and Priya to be an interesting couple to watch, especially once they do crash and burn, even though they do get together at the end. I'm just saying, like, their highs and lows were fun, also kind of exhausting to watch, but it's like, I would rather have an exhausting couple than a boring, like, character with, like, what, Wayne? Raj was out, Bowie's pretty boring, and then Damien with this whole idol thing was just kind of funny, but it's like, it doesn't provide that much substance in the show in the grand scheme of things. To where, yeah, Priya was a pretty decent character in season 2 of the reboot. I feel like it's Priya's best season by far. To where in season 1, she was more so just like kind of the sidekick to Millie, even though a lot of people on the show frame it to be Priya as the leader, which obviously Priya was, but it's like, in my opinion, Millie definitely got a lot of the content in season 1 compared to Priya. So it's like, yeah, Priya was pretty great in season 2. But in my opinion, I just feel like she falls short. Coming in at number 2, we do have someone who I feel like would maybe have been number 1 if the season was 26 episodes, but unfortunately it wasn't, so they are here at number 2, and that is Julia. Again, I love Julia in season 1. I think Julia in season 1 of the reboot is probably my favorite version of Julia. Again, I love her progression of becoming the main antagonist of the season, especially once MK exposes her for yelling at the dinosaur. And then once Julia eliminates MK throughout the game, I feel like seeing Julia's true self was just really fun to watch, and she really did make the reboot season 1 as fun as it was. Her and Bowie were definitely my 2 favorite characters, and I was rooting for both of them to win the season after all. And yes, I do love Julia's downfall in season 1, but I feel like throughout the season, there's not really much I could really qualm with her for her not to be like the winner of the season, I guess. But obviously she was made to have a downfall, and to be honest, she wouldn't have been my favorite winner of all time, so yeah, she's here at number 2. Coming in at number 1, we have a team who, obviously, in my opinion, was going to be number 1 throughout this entire video, and in my mind, it's not even close to where the gap between number 1 and the rest of the list is very far, and that is the Ice Dancers. And I know people are wondering why the Ice Dancers number 1 and why is Heather so low when both are actually very dominant villains, and to be honest, I don't know. Maybe it's just impact. Again, obviously, Heather winning Island would have ricocheted. But also, I feel like Heather winning Island just isn't the best case scenario anyways. Because I feel like Gwen winning is better. Duncan winning would have been better. Lashana winning would have been better. But in my mind, in Redonkulous race, I feel like only really the teams I feel like could have been a more satisfying winner than the Ice Dancers are the Police Cadets, which they end up winning. And then maybe the Sisters, in my opinion, also would have been great because I'm a massive fan of the Sisters now, so there's that. But I feel like the Ice Dancers were just a really funny team to watch. They're probably one of my all-time favorite villains. Probably if I were to update my top 10 villains list of all time, I could debate them being number 1, honestly. Because again, I have a higher opinion about the Ice Dancers. I don't know why, but I just love their characters individually, and I love their dynamic together. Obviously, I'm not denying the plot armor they had, obviously with the non-elimination rounds and the Daters elimination, which was very clearly just kind of rigged for them to obviously stay in the game. But I feel like the Ice Dancers are just a really fun team to watch, and I feel like them winning actually probably would have made my opinion about the Redonkulous race probably even higher. And also just, I could imagine them winning, and it would just be pretty funny in my mind. So yeah, with the Ice Dancers being number 1, they were the main characters of their season. They were also probably my favorites parts of the season, to be honest, to where I feel like no matter what team you put the Ice Dancers with, they'll always shine through. And the rivalry with the Police Cadets was also great, to where I would have loved them to be the final 2, and even if they won, in my opinion, it would have been pretty fun to watch. So yeah, they are number 1. And that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching this ranking. I really do appreciate it. I'll probably complete the winner ranking probably sometime in the weekday, probably on a Wednesday. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And yeah, love you guys. Peace out.